here we are. We're ready for assembly. Here are all 4 of my paper pieces, all finished, trimmed, looking so good. So when I trim them, I do leave a teeny tiny extra little bit on the corners, especially on the outside edges, so that you can trim your block when needed at the end, so that everything comes out nice and perfectly square. So leave a little bit of extra on your hypotenuse edges, which is the longest side of your triangle. So we are going to be sewing this together on a diagonal. So we're going to sew these 2 together, then these 2 together, and then the 2 together to make a nice square. So I'm going to set these across, sew these together here. So if you look, you can really nicely get your seams to nest so good. And then you will pin or clip or press down and hold your edges, so you should have a nice corner here, nice perfectly corner here, and then you can just stitch away all the way across here, holding it in place, pausing if you have pins or clips to take out. And then there we go. So good. You want this point right here to be 1/4 inch from the edge. So when you measure that, it should be 1/4 inch, so that when you join your pieces, you won't lose your center points. So that was 1. Here we are over to 2. Line it up oh so good. Make sure it's, oh, I didn't trim the corner there. Okay, here we go. Okay, now, again, 1/4 inch from the edge is where you want your points. Now we can sew our block together. So when we put this together, it works out really nicely to have one seam go the other way, opposite of each other, so that you can get those seams to nest really nicely. This is a huge seam, so I definitely would pin the edges. Make sure that everything stays in place where you want it to. Clips are definitely my preferred method for foundation paper piecing, because the pins just kind of distort the fabric, the paper a little bit. So just to make it so that it's a little bit easier to remove these papers later, I will rip out my paper from this seam allowance here. That way I'll be able to get that out later. So, because when you stitch this down right here, it makes it so that you can't get that paper out. So I'm gonna just rip this out real quick. I'm only gonna do part of it so that it's faster, but normally I would do the whole seam. So here we go, ripping that out. Make sure the seams are nice and nested. So I'm gonna open that up and take a look there, so that you can see how one seam's going that way, one seam's going that way. I'm going to hold that in place and make sure everything's lined up on the edges and stitch down the whole thing. Now, paper piecing can get really bulky. I'm going to pause that 1 second. So I really like to use a fine thread. So I'm using an 80 weight glide thread. It's a tri-level polyester, and it is so wonderful for paper piecing because it's super fine. So there's a lot less bulk when you go to fold over a bunch of seams in one spot. So ta-da, here is our block. It's so pretty. Look at that point. I would definitely recommend let's see if we can twist this seam here so that it can lay flatter. So you do have to pick out a couple of your stitches there, and then you can get your seam to lay nice and flat in the center and not have this giant ball in the middle. So all of your points should be, all the 1 points should be 1/4 inch, not all of them, these ones are very far, should be 1/4 inch from the edge. That way when you go to join your block to the next block, when it comes to finishing, you will not lose your points. So and then also this block should measure 10 inches when complete. This is the block. I hope you have fun. Let me know if you have any questions. Thank you.